works. And that's the way that we contribute to advance this. And so this is just a wonderful example of that. This is a high impact practice. The literature about what impacts student success, student persistence, student outcomes, post-graduation. This kind of work, this hands-on, experiential, high-impact work is really impactful. It really makes a difference to the students. As the president said, it inspires us to go farther and do more, and it makes such a difference in society. And so that the high impact really, consider that the very broad definition of what we mean by high impact. It really matters. So ARCS has placed CSUN students from both STEM and non-STEM disciplines at rewarding internships with following NASA centers. 7 students at JPL, 3 at NASA Ames, 4 at Armstrong Flight Research Center, right? And 2 at Langley Research Center. And this is remarkable. This is really great. So from my office, we're pleased to commit matching funds to conduct a feasibility study for ARCS, the Long-Term Sustainability and Engagement Initiative, the STEAM bubble. And I hope y'all heard the H when I said STEAM there, because it includes humanities, arts, as well as traditional STEM. And this is going to complement the exciting efforts that are underway in developing the Equity Innovation Hub at CSUN. So this is a really positive development. Now, just brag a little bit more about ARC's accomplishments. Just won $2 million more from NASA to extend and solidify the work they've been doing for another 2 years. So, we can do this again next year, and I'll say the same thing, so don't take notes. So, plus, they've just been awarded a NASA grant of $750,000 to develop the SoCal Alliance. I got to read this. High volume additive manufacturing of aerospace heat exchanger and talent development. So doesn't that sound cool? That's a very cool thing. Now, just again, to repeat the president, through ARC, students are gaining the power to change, supercharge their own career trajectories and the development in the world around us. So all of us at CSUN offer our thanks to NASA and our invaluable industry partners. We couldn't do it without you. So much appreciated. Thank you.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you our keynote speaker for today. For those of us who broke down in tears when we watched the Mars Perseverance rover landing on Mars, it's going to be a treat to hear from the speaker, who is the director of the engineering and science at JPL. He held numerous leadership positions at JPL. He was a program manager for the Program Formulation Office for the Mars Exploration Directorate. He was the chief engineer for the Mars Exploration Program, project system engineer for the Mars Curiosity rover Mars Science Lab. He's the recipient of the NASA Exceptional Award and got part of the numerous NASA Group Achievement Awards. He has 2 degrees from MIT, 2 bachelor degrees from MIT, 1 in aeronautics and astronautics, 1 in Earth atmospheric planetary sciences, and he also has a master's degree in aeronautic astronautics from Stanford. And I'm so happy he didn't get more degrees. With that, please give a very, very warm welcome to Charles Hudson.
President-elect Provost Walker, it's really an honor to have the opportunity to be here and with you all celebrating this 3rd liftoff and on behalf of the partnership with NASA. For the 3rd liftoff, I thought it would be appropriate to share some thoughts on 3 different themes. That's easy to remember, liftoff number 3 and 3 themes. First, to talk a little bit about all the exciting research that's going on here in areas of autonomy and the impact that's going to have. And then to think and pivot a little bit about the future and the future that's going to be enabled by all the wonderful autonomy that's being developed here and in other places. And then close with some thoughts about the role that each of you will play in paving the path for building the bridges into that future as well. So the research that's going on here is truly exciting, looking at the autonomy, and not just the autonomy, but partnerships between humans and these autonomous systems. And those partnerships that are being built, sometimes they're between humans and autonomous systems that are working side by side with each other, or they could be on the opposite sides of the nation from each other, or in partnership with JPL on the opposite sides of the solar system. We go off and we design these systems and using these kind of technologies, these exciting autonomous systems, those can be used for exploring surfaces and caves on other planets, but they can just as easily be used to explore collapsed building, partially collapsed building from an earthquake that's too dangerous for a human or first responder. And it's a really important type of an application for autonomy. Autonomous explorers will go across the surfaces, they fly in the air, or they can even exist virtually, completely within the metaverse, or completely implemented in software itself. But regardless of how that autonomy goes out and does those explorations or does those partnerships with humans, it has a way of expanding and enhancing our ability to do those things. I think Provost Walker talked about the excitement of looking forward to developing the STEAHM bubble, which would be another exciting and expansive enclosed environment where the testing and development of those systems can happen. And now I'll come back to some more thoughts on the importance of testing them and understanding how humans and autonomous systems interact with each other. But it's not all about space, right? The autonomous systems that are being studied here and being developed have real world societal impact. The additive manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, and the uses of autonomy there have a lot of applications in the space program. They have a lot of other economic impact here. It's a very bright future, and I think developing local economy and the business partners that are part of the ARCS Center as well are just as important. Societal benefits, including applications of autonomy in medical science, novel treatments for diabetes and other diseases. That's all extremely exciting research that's going on here. And then again, coming back to this theme of testing and trusting and how humans and autonomous systems interact. I think that's really one of the most promising areas that the interdisciplinary approach that ARCS is bringing holds promise for the future. And I'll come back to those thoughts a little bit later. I'd like to pivot then and spend a little bit of time talking about autonomy in the future and the things that can happen going forward and some of the obstacles we can anticipate in building the bridge to that future. NASA benefits from autonomy in space, but the nation benefits from autonomy everywhere, anywhere that it can be deployed. Not just in the additive manufacturing, advanced manufacturing we talked about as well, the societal benefits of healthcare, but also just general commercial benefits from autonomy and e-commerce and other ways that can be done, as well as the work here that's being done looking at autonomous energy management and energy distribution, things that will benefit us in the challenges that face us as we move forward in climate change. But for all of those benefits to really have the most impact that they can have, it really does rely on the people who are going to benefit from that autonomy, being able to trust it, being able to understand it, understand what it can and can't do, what it is and isn't empowered to do, and building that trust. And the interdisciplinary approach here, particularly the arts and the humanities focus to this, is one of those really important, I think, innovations that the ARCS Center is uniquely qualified to contribute to. In thinking about building those bridges to the future, it's actually, I think, relevant to go back and take some lessons from history. So I'll bring people back 250 years to the start of the Industrial Revolution, which I think most historians would ascribe to having really been centered in the textile industry in England, in the mid-country. That's a period of time where there was an unprecedented amount of economic disruption. It actually gave rise to an anti-technology movement called the Luddites, who specifically were anti-anything, anti-innovation, anti-technology. It's from this era that the word sabotage actually comes into the vocabulary for people who were intentionally destroying machines because they felt the technology was going to disrupt the economy and take jobs away. History shows that wasn't the case, that there was a disruption in the type of jobs that were needed. People had to be retrained and retooled for the new jobs. but the number of jobs and the economic impact from the infusion of the technology of the Industrial Revolution created far more jobs and resulted in a higher standard of living for all those that participated in it than the jobs and things that work was being done. We stand here in the middle of a digital revolution that I think is already on scale, on pace to outpace the economic impact, societal impact of the Industrial Revolution. The key difference between the digital revolution and the Industrial Revolution is that while the benefits of the Industrial Revolution largely went to those who came into it with large amounts of money and the resources to invest in physical capital that enabled them to benefit from that. Really is going to benefit those who invest in the intellectual capital that it takes to move forward, and that's something that there's a much lower barrier to entry for, and something that I'm hoping all of you will have an opportunity to benefit for. Finally, close with some thoughts about your role in building the path to the future, and the work that's going on here, and my hopes and aspirations for how you'll be able to move forward. Adding the A to the STEM field of bringing in the arts is something that has been, I think, in the literature for a while now. I'll have to admit that my exposure to ARCS was the first time I'd seen the H come in. I'm glad to have the question answered. I wasn't sure if that changed the pronunciation, so now I understand it's still STEAM, but adding the humanities, I think it really is an important innovation and an important term here. When I think back to my own university days, one thing that I know the professors tried to impress upon us, but I didn't fully appreciate until I came out and started working in the workplace, is that these days any innovation, any challenge, any problem we're solving, it really requires a team of people to come together. And more often than not these days, that's an interdisciplinary team. I think in my era, it was an interdisciplinary team of mechanical engineers and electrical engineers and software people. But now, as we're learning, bringing that societal impact, the human impact, human-centered design, and a lot of those approaches to it as well are really what's going to be required to have the successful teams going forward that can tackle the problems that lie ahead in the future. And I think the CSUN and the ARCS Center are all preparing you all quite well for that type of future. So your university is leading forward in those investments and in that innovation. I'm proud to be here on behalf of the NASA partnership, who's also making that investment in the most important renewable resource that is, and that's all of you. It's all of the students that will come behind you. It's those that you will mentor and you'll teach as you lead your academic pursuits and then move out into jobs in industry, hopefully some at NASA and at JPL as well, and to the next generation that comes on, to your family and to your children and to those that go beyond. So with that, I'd just like to thanks again for the opportunity to participate and be part of this liftoff, and I wish you nothing but the best going forward. Thanks.
Ross. Yeah, so in the late 60s, for the first time ever, we humans had left the Earth orbit and traveled to another world. We did that with the NASA Apollo, and 2 men on the moon. Our country, our nation was inspired, was energized. And now we are really excited time, 50 years away from the Apollo program. And by the way, I don't know if you know, in Greek mythology, Apollo has a twin sister. The name of the twin sister is Artemis. So with all this Greek mythology, but it's not a myth that NASA is now preparing Artemis mission to land the first woman and to land the first person of color on the south pole of the moon by 2025. Why take so long? In seriousness, encouraging and promoting women, people of color to go in STEM-related, NASA-related workforce is really paramount to NASA success and also by extension, our nation's success. And we here at ARCS, we have this to get more diverse students, especially female students, to blaze trails in becoming convergent research leader and working across disciplines. And we are very fortunate today to have a group of trailblazers who have carved the paths, who have so much wisdom to share with us today in this afternoon, Women in STEAM panel. So with that, let me introduce to you my colleague, Diana Winter, who I met years ago. She was, and we served on the Educational Equity Committee together. She was the chair of the committee, and then she inspired me to be the chair of that committee after that. And Diana is a full professor in the Cinema Television Arts Department. Her publication and her curated work focus on the impact of media on children and also on the American auteur filmmakers. She directed many television shows, and she got an Emmy nomination for directing the ABC TV Daddy Show. And right now, she's leading an initiative to build digital production in her department. And recently, she got a $100,000 grant from CSUN to build this 20 feet LED digital wall for virtual production in the studio. And this has been in collaboration with a number of strategic partners like Alexa, Kina, XIBF, and this number of companies we're working with. Yeah. So with that, please help me welcome my colleague, Diana Winter, who's going to moderate the Women in STEAM panel.
I'm so honored to be here and to get to mingle with these brilliant astrophysicist women that I'm going to bring up in a little second. I was in the ladies' room putting on my mascara and my lipstick, and I overheard them having a conversation. And they were talking in Martian. We're talking in Martian. And I took some notes because I like to talk in Martian. Here's what I was saying. So Dr. Says to Dr. Morales, I heard your OTM got caught up in some centripetal acceleration. And she said, it wasn't a centripetal acceleration, it was a centrifugal force that was just like from Pluto. I said, oh, okay. So what was it? The Chandler Wobble? Tell me, come on, Chandler Wobble. No, it wasn't the Chandler Wobble. Oh, I know what it was. It was the ecliptic eccentricity of the equinox, wasn't it? Yes, that's exactly what it was. The ecliptic eccentricity of the equinox. Well, what are you going to do about it? RSN? Mm-mm. OTM? Mm-mm. OpNav? Mm-mm. And then they start doing this. Pondering and pondering. And then all at once, they all smack their heads and go, I've got it. Photovoltaic periapsis. And then they like high five each other and they're like really excited. Photovoltaic periapsis, that's the answer. So, I learned some Martian today and I want to thank them for that experience. I'm honored to be in their company. So please welcome to the stage, Dr. Farisa Morales. Dr. Morales is a scientist and astronomer and project manager at NASA's JPL Astrophysics and Heliophysics Office. She is also department chair at Moore Park College and instructor at CSUN's College of Science and Math. She is a first-generation non-traditional student. Her diverse college education includes community college, bachelor's degree in astrophysics from UCLA, a master's degree in physics from CSUN, and her PhD in physics from USC. Yeah, really. Dr. Charlene Ung is project manager at Earth Science Mineral Dust Source Investigation, or EMIT, of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Dr. Ung received her electrical engineering degree from CSUN before pursuing her master's degree in engineering, production, and management at Loyola. She is the author of Nam Wa, a young girl's story of her family's escape from Vietnam. And in 2016, she was recognized as Woman of the Year by Assemblyman Ed Chow. Please welcome to the stage Dr. Charlene Ng.
One correction, no, I'm not a doctor.
She plays one at NASA. And Deb Salvaggio. Okay, Deb Salvaggio is the Assistant Director of X-Lab, or Experiments Lab, at the Aerospace Corporation, providing direct management to a group of project and product managers and supporting the entire 70-person X-Lab. Project manager Salvaggio has spent the majority of her career in the space industry, with a few side roads into startup tech and academia. For 25 years, she oversaw the design, building, testing, and delivery of space flight and space prototype instruments, test beds, and satellites. She always asserts that her collegiate experience in English literature honed her analytical and communication skills, which have been critical to her success and the success of the many projects she has led for the US government and for NASA and other space, science, and technology customers. Please welcome Project Manager Deb Salvaggio. I'm so honored to be in your company. So we're gonna jump into some questions right now. How can emerging STEAM leaders like yourselves make the workplace more equitable? And what DEI efforts have you seen in the NASA and astrophysics world to close the equity gaps and the opportunity gaps? Teresa, would you like to go first? Dr. Morales?
Thank you.
Hello, is it working?
How the kinds of efforts that I'm involved with. I came to JPL as an intern 20 years ago, and and so what I've been doing lately is, ever since I started teaching, I saw talent in the classroom, and I started inviting students to apply for internships. And I found that, I started to develop programs for these students to do their internships. And so I've been mentoring students. And I, have an eye out for especially those shy women in the classroom. I teach physics and astronomy here at CSUN and at Moore Park College. And I, typically it's 2 or 3 women that are, I see the potential immediately to try to get them out of that shell, right? And so that's efforts that I personally am involved with. I've been mentoring for several years. And then overall, NASA last year, 2020, instituted as its 5th core value inclusion. So everybody through all NASA labs is starting to spread the word on how important inclusion is to improve our projects. And so now, as for example, the program manager for the research and analysis office of JPL for heliophysics and astrophysics, I am in charge of making sure that all the proposals that are coming through are compliant with NASA policy. And so now we are, requiring that these proposals have an inclusion plan. And so we are working on that, right? So inclusion became the 5th core value of NASA, a year and a half ago. And so now we're implementing this actively. And so everybody's scrambling around like, how do I do this, right? So I'm working with lots of my colleagues to make sure that we are including inclusion plans in our proposals.
Thank you. Same question. How can emerging STEAM leaders like yourselves make the workplace more equitable? And what DEI efforts have you seen in your workplace to close the equity and opportunity gaps?
So for my job as a project manager for MID, I was a department manager, a JPL called section manager for like 150 people. And I was the only female in the department. I remember reaching out to other candidates to fill the slot. This one woman, she was very shy and she's very capable. She was from the department before. The job that she applied for didn't fit, but I encouraged her to apply again. And I remember when I was talking to my manager about hiring this person, because being a female, she was shy and she was not as assertive. And as a leader, as a department manager, I was able to bring out her other features or other skills and hire her against my supervisor's recommendation. And I use that as an opportunity, why it's important to have diverse workforce. Also looking at part of making a change is acknowledging there's a problem. And if you don't acknowledge there's a problem, then you won't make a change. So we look into how many female and male, and not only a different diverse group, but also the pay gap. And when we have those conversations with managers, why someone, some females get paid less, the argument might be, well, they're not working hard enough, or they're not on a project that's well known. And as a leader, you really have to have that in the back of your mind. I think the biggest thing that I was able to do as a department manager is that to acknowledge to my management that there's a problem. Because so many of them say, no, it's not a problem. We're just hiring good people. It just turned out that they're not female. So, the other thing I want to say about JPL, about where I am, is that I've been at JPL about 18 years. I see a lot of changes. When I first started, this is a true story. My supervisor said to me, "You're a woman. You should stay home and take care of your kids." And my girls were young then. And then to today, I'm a project manager of a project representing JPL. So we have come along.
Speak to this, what more can leaders do? For those opportunities?
This is good.
Yes.
You know, the Aerospace Corporation, some people here know what the Aerospace Corporation is, and some people don't, but stodgy might be a good word for the Aerospace Corporation. Very, very smart, and kind of not out in front of new things. But I'll give them credit because DEI has become a #1 priority. And so at a corporate level, they're doing lots of things, right? They've had 40-year relationships with traditionally minority universities and colleges and the GEM program. But what they've also done this year, which I really appreciate, is they brought in training for managers. And the training included things like the bias you don't know you have, right? Like really what it means to be inclusive. And it was very good training, and I really did appreciate it. I thought they were being just a little less stodgy. I was very proud of them. So there's a lot of top down, and from an equity standpoint, I see that they are working hard on that. But when you talk to the people here, like, what can you do? Right? You're not hiring anybody yet, right? What can you do? And what I talk to my teams about is the inclusion part of DEI. And it's inclusion at, you know, diversity means more than cultural diversity, racial diversity, gender diversity. It means thinking diversity, right? Which is why you guys are stuck with me, because my CTO was supposed to be sitting here, but she had to go to a different meeting, so that's why you're stuck with me. But it makes me so excited to see the A and the H in STEAM, because that's diversity too, right? And that's inclusion, and making space for other people to talk is one of the things that I think is really important. And it was part of the training that they gave us, and I was so happy.
So have you, Marisa, have you had any obstacles in your careers related to gender, DEI, you know, like in Hidden Figures? Were they like moving the pencils and making you go to the bathroom in another building?
I did have to go to the bathroom on a different floor for many years because my floor had only male bathrooms, and that was for like the first 18 years of me at JPL. But in the last 2 years, right before COVID hit, unfortunately, they made one of the restrooms genderless. I don't have to go upstairs. So that is a parallel there. Unfortunately.
I was joking.
Mention the restrooms. But in general, no. I felt that JPL very welcomed. I pretty soon in my career as an undergrad, just doing research, I joined the Spitzer Space Telescope team, and they were very welcoming. I was most often, right, in a meeting, a status meeting on how the telescope was doing, right, when it launched, after it launched, the checkout and everything, and as we were carrying on with science for years. A room would be, anywhere between 20 to 60 people of the science team only, and there was 1 or 2 women, right, most of the time. And so, but I saw it change, even in 15 years or so, I've seen it change. The last time I looked at the data, in terms of administration, there's very few women, and that's really a propagation of very few women graduating in astrophysics, last century. But if you look at the undergrad population right now, it's pretty close to 50-50 when it comes to astrophysics, right? So I'm hoping that wave will arrive with you guys. Come on, help me out.
We are. How about you, Charlene? You just mentioned someone telling you to stay home and bake cookies. Raise your kids. Did you have any other of those Hidden
Yes.
Figures experiences? How did you overcome them?
I have my tall shoes on. On a good day, I barely count. So being Asian and my early days as engineer, I think even after 3 years working as an engineer, people thought I was an intern. They said, summer's over, why are you still here? I'm not going away. The other thing is that being so soft-spoken, so the way I look, it was hard for me to have people take me seriously. And for many years, I would say, can I, take that job? I was like, no, you can't, because you haven't done this or that. And this is a true story. I work at Rockwell, Hughes, Boeing, Northrop Grumman. When I went to JPL, I was there for 14 years. And it's the same manager that says I should stay home and take care of my kids. There were other projects there, and I would say, can I take that? I can take that job. And I would say, where I am today at JPL, I took on a job people don't want. I took the first job I got on flight project was that a small project called Aquarius, and the person in charge of that project saying, I don't want this job. It's too hard. They require a very small budget, but they require me to do a lot. And I said, I'd rather be on another project that's easier. So I raised my hand, I got the job. That was my first break working on a flight project.
That deserves some applause.
So I think where I am at JPL is not what how I look, or when I go to interview, it's very hard for them to trust my history from other company. And I remember one manager said to me, if you haven't done it at JPL, you haven't done it at all. So I think Charles. So then I went to a supervisor, and I managed this group that nobody wants to manage because they were a mismatch of people that don't fit anywhere, and the most difficult group. And I remember someone said to me, you're gonna quit after 2 months. They are the most difficult, they can't find a supervisor, and they're gonna eat you alive. So I was on that job for 3 years. Then I help out on projects, and I said, I'm good at this job. And I said, no, we're waiting for someone else to come along, and I just be a placeholder. And MSL got delayed for 2 years. No one was coming, and they had to stick with me because no one else was coming. So I got that job, and I got done. And then, my mentor said, you should manage a department. And so I got the worst department on lab, and no one wanted that department. I remember my coworker said to me, "You can do any job. Why would you take this department when they're, the reputation, the department is like the worst department on lab?" And I said to her, if you're on the bottom, the only way to go is up. It's a great job for me, because they're on the bottom.
And did you turn those departments around, Aquarius and the one that
Yes.
all the strange guys?
Yes,
everyone?
the two projects I was on, I delivered early and under budget.
Okay, now.
First, and I remember the second time I delivered early, they said, there was only one person before that was deliver early. I forgot her name. And there's not too many female engineers in that department. I said, Charlene Woods. It's like, yeah, something like that. That was my married name.
Oh, so that was you. Well, what would you call your strategy? Was there a strategy or a philosophy of handling all of that? Did you ever just get mad and?
No. When I was a department manager, I remember this one technician, when I wanted to talk to her about, how can I help you? And, what can we do to make the department better? She said to me, and other guys too, saying, we hear so many managers coming in here telling us how they're going to help improve the department. Why are you different? And I said to her and other technicians and managers, I said, don't just hear what I'm saying. Watch my record. Watch how I manage or judge me. I think when I love, they're like, you're the best. You make all these changes, and it's very important to do what you say and say what you do. I think that's very important, because I think I'm able to be where I am at JPL is because I'm consistent. I follow up, and in every job, doesn't matter how big or small, I put 110% in it. And it's important to get the job done, but it's important to take care of the people. That's even more important than getting the job done. If you take care of the people, the job will get done.
Thank you. Wonderful. Here's the story.
I've experienced quite a lot. I don't think it's worth telling the story.
Okay.
I did have someone tell me I would never be who I am right now.
How did you surmount that?
You know,
Philosophy or strategy?
I was thinking about that when you were talking. I knew you were going to ask that question. So being in a leadership role, a team leadership role, or a management role, any sort of leadership role in your team, in your group, in your group project, the way to do it is through respect, right? Respecting each other and really focusing on the success of the project. Because when you become a person, then all of the otherness goes away, right? In my role, with my educational background, with my gender, I'm older than everybody else up here, and I've been other quite a lot in my life, right? Even when I didn't really know what that word meant, like what that feeling meant. But when I thought about what did I do, I think that when you work with a team and the team is focused on everyone's success, that falls away, right? And then you build the trust and respect, and you succeed. And sometimes under budget and ahead of schedule, and sometimes not. Sometimes. But I think that's really what I've done, and I think it's a leadership thing. Right? It's something that comes from your gut. It comes from you're excited, your eyes are sparkling, you're really, really excited about what you're doing, and people respect that, and they forget your other. They forget you are other because you're all focused on that success.
So I just delivered the surface mineral dust investigation project. It's an instrument to KSC last month. And I had to go back to NASA headquarters to present my resolved and asked for money to go to operation. And when I went there, this was like a 3.5-year project. The first time I went there, I gave a talk about where we are and just the beginning of the project. Someone there told me, I will see you back here for cancellation review. And I didn't know what that was because I was a new project manager. And I said, are you canceling this? I said, well, I don't see how you would be able to get this job done because you didn't bid enough money and it's a very difficult task. And so 3.5, our whole project, when we were going to implementation was during COVID. And it's even harder to manage during COVID. And we were, a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, we made a commitment to deliver in February 2022. And we delivered March 17, 2022. You know, three weeks off. And I went back there and presented my story under budget, no technical issues, deliver the hardware, and they were surprised. And I remember Thomas Lucan, he's the associate administrator, said to me, I want to see more of that. Yeah, that's a good example for other people to follow. That was such a good feeling compared to my initial meeting saying, telling me that they'd see me during cancellation.
Did you ever see that cancellation guy again? He got canceled. Marisa. What do you think is the importance of the A and the H in STEAM, arts and humanities, bringing arts and humanities into science, tech, engineering? What's the importance of that?
Thinking outside the box, right? Because when you have a bunch of people in your team who are like-minded, whether, both in training from their academic experience, they're all trained in the same place under the same mentors, to uniform, you're not going to get the most beautiful product out of that team, right? You want to diversify teams because when you are in a diverse team, it's been shown many, many times through many studies and that you end up performing on your best because you don't want to embarrass your family, right? So you end up performing on your best, more eloquent, if you become, you just take out all your skills. And so diversifying teams, including arts and humanities in technical fields, can only have a positive effect, right? And just thinking outside the box. Because again, like-minded people, because we've been trained, we like classical STEM only, under the mathematics and engineering or science and so on, we tend to start thinking alike too much.
Okay, that's right. Diversity of thought. Same question to you, Deb. Importance of arts and humanities.
Favorite question. Right, she was called English majors. So thinking outside the box, absolutely. What I've seen, and I think what you guys are working on in autonomy, just like it explodes that because autonomy affects so many different areas, right? I've worked in the space industry and primarily not autonomous space because I don't work at JPM. But as having the freedom to ask the questions becomes really important. So I was thinking about that while I was driving here. It's like, well, I can't tell all these people that they should now drop their STEM majors and go be anthropology majors and literature majors. But I would say take the Greek mythology course, right? And take your religions of the world course and pay attention and enjoy being able to analyze and think in a different way, right? And so my success partially has been because I wasn't embarrassed about asking the stupid questions because I wasn't the engineer in the room or the scientist in the room. So it was okay. And sometimes they were really stupid questions and that's okay. But sometimes they were a question that someone else in the room really, really wanted to ask, but was too embarrassed to ask because figured everybody else knew the answer. So I was able, because I wasn't in STEM, to open that space up a little bit and have great discussion, right? And then get the better result because of that. So it's not necessarily that you have to have an English major on every team, though I would love that. But if you can open your own minds to, there's value in those humanities classes and there's value in those arts classes because they're going to help you think in a different way. And that's where I feel obviously really strongly about this. So that's what makes my eyes sparkle so I get excited.
I love that.
How did you make the transition? What was that pathway like from English literature into science and tech?
Well, I'll tell you something people may not know is that no one pays you to read Shakespeare. And I needed a job. And I did, full disclosure, I did teach literature at one point in my career, but it wasn't at the beginning. And I would tell my students, no one's going to pay you to read Shakespeare. And very few of you are going to go on and become professors. So somewhere along the line, you have to do something else, which could be work in a restaurant because then they feed you. But it's something. I got that job. I got into that world by being a proposal writer. That is actually how I ended up in that room. And I was writing about stuff and it was really interesting and I kind of understood it. And I started asking questions. It just sort of happened.
Wonderful.
I wanted to add into that a little bit, when you were speaking, since before, the A and the H, since I'm in the proposal world, which projects get done? The ones that have good proposals. And which ones have good proposals? The ones that write them with engaging tone and present the graphics in the right colors and so on and so forth. So that is absolutely the one that's going to get them to do the work.
Good point. Good point. Okay, what is the best advice someone has ever given you that helped you succeed and prosper in your field? Charlene first.
I would say don't give up and also not afraid to ask for help.
All right, Marissa? Marissa, I want to combine your first name and your last name.
Right. Definitely Marissa is more common than Marissa. So when I first interned at JPL, I was there for 10 weeks and I was totally lost. Where's the restroom? The restroom was like, it was upstairs, yeah. And our mentor, this one thermal engineer, was in charge of 11 students. I was a math major at UCLA, not sure what the math was for. I just wanted to apply it to something interesting, and so that's what triggered me changing into astrophysics. But what this advisor said to us one day, as we were all exploring, trying to feed into a mission to Mars and build a rover, etc. So I ended up with telecommunications and ground systems as my role for that summer, and I had no idea what the words meant. And so he said, well, here's the contacts. You can, the telecommunications and ground systems building is over there, and the thermal engineers are over there, and the mechanical engineers are in that building. And so this is like, it's just a little city. And then he said, if their door is open or they answer the phone, it's their fault. And I was like, okay, I guess. And so even if I'm a little shy, I just kept that to heart. It's same thing. As I was going through school and I wanted to go to office hours, but I was always like embarrassed to ask, stupid questions or whatever. It's like, well, if their door is open or they answer the phone, it's their fault. So, just walk right in, it's their fault.
Okay, look for the open door. Okay, best advice you can give, Deb.
Oh, that I can give?
No, I'm sorry, best advice someone's given you.
Someone's giving me that's different, sorry. So I was thinking about that on the way here too. And I think I think about an astrophysicist I used to work for, who I was the project manager on a project, but he was also my boss's boss. Right? And he was late on a sub-assembly that was due. And you guys probably know Dr. Clemens, he's at Boston University now. And he looked at me in the meeting and he said, Deb, why have you not yelled at me? And I said, well, you're my boss's boss. And he said, in this room, you are in charge. And I try to remember that all the time. I'm in charge in that room, even if they are my boss's boss. And the beauty of working with scientists and engineers who are so passionate is they will allow you to do that. But that I think was some of the best advice and most surprising to me, because I come out of the Lockheed General Electric hierarchy, 15 million layers and 2,500 vice presidents. And so that was really freeing for me.
Yeah. That's
So I think the best advice when I was talking about them and ask for help is that I came to the US about 13 years old, and my dad said, you have to go to college. And 13 years old, not really knowing how to speak English. And my dad said, wouldn't give up on me, just have to study harder than anyone else. I took 4 years to graduate high school with a degree or with a diploma, and I came to STEAHM. As an engineering major, before engineering major, and I know I always wanted to be an engineer, but in high school, I only took Algebra 2, and I didn't take calculus. And so I came to college and took calculus, and I was behind, and I couldn't keep up. So then I went to a tutoring, and I found a friend who's willing to tutor me, and I would give him haircuts every 6 weeks. I was working as a hairdresser, worked my way through college. And so I took that mindset to my career, is that when we're working on engineering problems, sometimes it seems really tough that you can't solve. Asking for help, working it together as a team, we might not be able to see it, but other people have a different perspective. So the not giving up in a lot of jobs that I get to, that advice, I follow that because sometimes it seems so hard, and rather just find a rich husband and get married and deal with the engineers. And might get inspired me to be an engineer. And I got my degree here.
Matadors. Go Matadors. In 30 seconds, or maybe 45 seconds, what has been one of your greatest accomplishments, and to what do you owe that success? Greatest accomplishments. Okay. You all have one in your head? Not yet? Okay. Yes. Okay. Charlie, you go first.
I would say the recent project that I completed, it's going to be the first of its kind, measuring mineral dust from International Space Station. And we went through not only cost constraint, and especially when people are higher up thinking that you're going to fail, just prove them wrong. It's very satisfying. The other thing is that having a team, how do you motivate a team to work together during the COVID era and working from home and communicate? And I would say we were joking about without working from home and COVID happened, would we complete this project? Because all we do is just work. We couldn't do anything else. So I'm looking forward to see it launch June 7th on the SpaceX 25.
Measuring the mineral dust from Mars.
From ISS, International Space Station.
International Space Station.
Yes.
It's very exciting. Launching in June 7th. Okay, mark your calendars. Okay, what has been one of your greatest accomplishments, and to what do you owe that success, Parisa?
I will share this one. So I joined Spitzer Space Telescope, this is the infrared cousin of Hubble Space Telescope, back in 2002, a year before we launched. And after we launched, a year or so, the data started just pouring in. It's like you're drinking from a fire hose, right? And so the project scientist, Michael Bird, he had lots of tentacles, right? Had projects, all kinds of projects of different kinds. And I was an undergrad trying to learn like what is, the coordinates, like what, what is this about? And so he said, hey, do you want to help me out with this specific project? And I said, sure. And so he says, here's this data that's coming in. So I was just learning to what is called data reduction, so just analyzing the data. What does it mean? How do you translate the signal from a detector into how many, Janskis or whatever, units of energy, et cetera. And so I was learning about that. As the time goes on, I graduated with my bachelor's, I go into a master's degree, and I just mastered, this data reduction stuff, and become kind of like the master. So it's like that passion, right? And I make a lot of progress, and I make, you're picking up lots of coding skills and becoming more elegant with your modeling and putting in, how realistic green properties, how they behave in interstellar space. And so this project had to do with analyzing the dust from main sequence stars, between mature stars around the sun, right, in the solar neighborhood. These are mature stars that have their own planetary debris systems, right? So they have planets forming around them, debris like asteroid belts, Kuiper belts, that kind of stuff. And I'm analyzing the infrared radiation, and I recognize that you cannot model these things with only one, circumstellar ring of debris, that there has to be a couple of them. And so I make my whole analysis, I publish it, I present it at conferences, I received a medal for it. And again, I'm just really presenting these observational results from this brand new, beautiful telescope. And I was very pleased with the work, and publishing, completed the PhD, and my thesis dissertation had a lot to do with all these skills and all these, work that I was doing, and findings about how other planetary systems their architecture is, and how does it compare to ours. But it really hit me. I had graduated with my PhD for a couple of years. I was at a conference in Cambridge in England, and then the conference began, and it was all about planetary system formation. And they start with the first speaker and says, well, according to Morales et al., it's like, well, there's 2 rings of debris around the system, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my gosh, and I'm shrinking in my seat. Like, yes, they quoted my work. And then the next speaker. And according to Morales et al., what did I say? Oh my gosh. The 5 speakers from the morning quoted Morales et al. About how transcendental this work had been, right? Because we have this brand new tool in space that can see in just, way better than we ever had. And I was the one at the right place at the right time, receiving the data, drowning in it, working on it for several years, and finding something about the architecture of planetary systems around us. And so at that point, I think that called out my greatest claim, my greatest contribution. But I didn't do it alone, right? It's a whole team, it's a whole mission. I had lots of people mentoring me through it, but definitely lots of, hours dedicated to the data reduction.
Wow, that's amazing. Martian, I love it. 30 seconds, Tabs, 30 seconds.
So I was gonna say, oh, well, the thing I'm most proud of is the thing I just did, right? Because I'm always most proud of my most recent project, right? And certainly over COVID, I was lucky enough to be in charge of the team, and we were able to get some stuff done during COVID, which was not so easy from a work from home, because we have to actually put it all together, and we can't do spaceflight hardware from home. Just telling you that now, you can't actually physically put spaceflight hardware together from home. Just level set. But I actually, very quickly, my biggest accomplishment is the amazing team of project managers that I have on my team at Aerospace. I'm so jazzed every day, and they are from every single background. Someone from data management, and someone who's propulsion engineer, doesn't do any propulsion engineering, and electrical and mechanical, and someone who's an anthropology major, and they're wonderful, and they're from very different cultural backgrounds, but they rock. And when people say to me, oh, you're one of the best PMs at Aerospace, we love working with you, and I keep saying, no, my team, they're so much better than me, right? And I think that that's the thing I'm most proud of today.
Thank you. What an amazing set of women. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to spend some time with you.
Thank you.
Newt?
Congratulations, year 3.
And guys, we have a few minutes. Well, I guess we. Sure. Yeah, so the last portion of our celebration today. I just want to briefly share that, this past 2 years, just like everybody else, been very challenging for all of us here at ARCS. But I think what this idea that, it was really also an opportunity for us to build resiliency, to tap into the perseverance part of our in us. And as a result, for our center in particular, we've grown tremendously in this past 2 years and have tremendous impact. We have 15 students doing internship at NASA, just around 2.5 years. As a center, we have students at UC Berkeley, Stanford, Harvard, and again, really top-notch jobs. And I think this just really speaks to the phenomenal work that our professor and our students are doing. And so what's next for us? In President-Beck's vision for accelerating work on closing equity gap and also our provost initiative on building a roadmap for inclusive excellence, they are calling for disruptive strategies. And I'm here today and I want to tell you that that's what ARCS stands for. At least that's what all of us believe we stand for, disruptive strategy. And ARCS operates like a startup, scrappy, nimble, and I'm sure some of my staff members would say that I try to get it to move at the speed of the JPL rocket. But in all seriousness, the fundamental tenet behind the startup is you ought to bring disruption to the environment, to the market, what you're doing. And I'd like to briefly share with you one such disruption that we are doing right now in collaboration with our partners at JPL, also with partners, is this STEAHM bubble. And this is really an outgrowth of the need that we need to have capabilities to help support NASA mission. And you notice the wood on the right corner, concept video, right? It is a dream video. So Joe, can you flip through some? So we envision a football-sized stadium bubble, and it has a really nice big wall data wall visualization of different sort of data, for example, or the data from the NASA science instrument, or data being used to address health equity issue, looking at the patient journey if somebody had diabetes, for example. And this is another rendering we're thinking about. It has spaces, it has laboratory fabrication, and can we go to the backside, Joe? Where there's spaces for Mars rovers, Mars helicopters to be tested in here. And a lot of these concepts are based on what we see right now that JPL Mars are using to test the rovers on Mars. So, and thinking about, well, as a school, as CSUN, if we have such a facility and we can work on a Mars rover, Mars helicopter, we're here right at school, and we're heard enough today that these are the kind of projects that we would have arts, cinematography student make a documentary, anthropology student help them think about the organization, human elements, and autonomous system. I think it's really going to help uplift the quality of the kind of work that we can do here at CSUN. And just, unfortunately, I think our president left, but some of you know, she's, those of you who've been to her investiture, you probably saw the TikTok video that she did, right, Joe? Yeah, so she and our vice president has agreed to be the answer. When we have this facility open. And where we are, and they said, you know, we make them, would you, they're gonna do and where we are with this is we are in the phase of doing the visibility study. We did one study, our 18th study with JPL in December. And now we do the visibility study, and that's gonna help us to see how much of all this things gonna come true. But this is a very phenomenal effort that I think has helped really energize us, really thinking about far ahead and how we can create infrastructure to support autonomy research. So that's it. Okay. Yeah, so with that, for the remainder today, we have a poster session outside. Students been making poster, I'd like to invite you out there to interact with our students. We also have food and drinks outside as well. And lastly, thank you again so much for coming today. And really also a big thank you to all of our students for your hard work and preparing the poster, practice, make it happen. And also had a big thank you to our staff member who worked day and night to pull together this event. So please give a big round. I'd like to ask you to please, we have the poster outside, the food outside, please go in there, exchange.
Was it here?
Yeah, but I hope you enjoy the poster, the food out there. There's lots of projects. Yeah, I'll get it to you. We can do this as a bubble, airfield bubble, because our